place to be is living free in Tennessee.
Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Thursday, February 17th. It's Tuesday. Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. And this is episode 1119 of Living Free in Tennessee. And I'm hoping everybody can hear me. As you can see, I'm back in my actual studio. I have not been in my studio for like the last month. The reason I was laughing when it started is for some dumb reason, right as we like started going live, StreamYard went into like full screen mode. And usually I like to have a split screen for y'all where there is like some notes I have, like my talking points here and the camera, and I can see your comments. And right now my notes are over there on the other monitor I have. So and I was like, I'm going to drag it over, and then it totally went into weird mode. So growing pains of getting back in the studio. So far nobody has told me I'm just super quiet, so I'm guessing the mic is actually working. So that's good. I had not been in the studio because I decided, since nobody was staying in the studio, like nobody visiting, to stay in the guest room sort of thing, which is where my studio is. There was no reason to heat it. And we had a lot of cold in January, and then it just I kept putting off getting it set up. But today I was like, okay, it's time. We need the Living Free in Tennessee logo in the background and my wonderful black background with a few chips in the paint down there. We can't see them right now. Anyway, so I'm excited to be back in my studio, and I have my working space in the other room all set up. It's been a pretty productive week as far as that goes. Today I'm going to talk about what gets in the way of some people building a community like we have, like a really powerful community. And it goes back to just simply setting the wrong community goals. And I think our society is set up that we think the best goal to measure success of your community is one thing. But if you really look at what the most powerful communities do, they have an element we don't much talk about. So we're going to talk about that today. And we're also going to go through our usual Monday segments. I'm actually going to see, though, if I can bring a guest on today. So to do that, what I need to do is be able to, I don't know, invite the guest. I wonder how you do that. Oh, you go here and you copy that link. Cool. Anyway, I'm going to try to get a friend on to give us an update about an event that happened earlier today at the Tennessee State Capitol. And I know we don't usually get political, but I've got a bee in my bonnet right now. And one of the things that appears to be happening, so Tennessee passed one of the most free food freedom, like local cottage food law systems that there are. And they did that. I'm going to say see email. They did that effective 2026. So it's gone into effect now. And when I was at the Pick Tennessee conference, there was a whole thing about all of the new things we can do. And it seems to be paired with an increased scrutiny from the regulators on people at the same time. So we know that Dawn Gorham got illegally searched without a warrant, and they were rifling through her stuff, and which turned into a whole thing, right? And that's not cool behavior. And that tells me that part of the power structure is not excited about the food freedom that's happening here. I'm excited about more food freedom. In fact, I think we should have a right to eat food that we choose. I don't think somebody should be getting in my way to have access to food, especially food created on a farm. And one of the things that gets in the way of keeping the small family farms is onerous regulations that are designed to benefit the larger operations but hurt the small farms, because many of the large farms cannot compete with the quality that you can put out if you're just hands-on 3-acre farm. It's a different thing. And people want that. They want the nutrient dense food. I think it is possible to do nutrient dense food on a larger scale, but that's not how the commercial system is set up. I've been really thinking about this a lot lately, just with I'm thinking about wealth and boomers getting older, and how Gen X, I believe, is going to be the first generation that has less wealth than the generation before them. It could be millennials, but I think it's Gen X. And so as the boomers pass on, if Gen X inherits, that's how they get their wealth rather than having built their wealth. Not that Gen X hasn't built wealth for themselves, they have, but with out of control, crazy inflation and all that's happened, it's happened twice in my life now, right? In the 70s and then again recently. There's always been inflation the whole time, but there've been two like key times where it was just like, well, you thought you could retire, but now you can't. Like anybody retiring in 2019 is looking around going, WTF. That's not anybody, but many people, I'm sure. At the moment, the stocks haven't but the prices have, gone up. So, the boomers though, and the silent generation, like those two together built the refined system we have now after World War II that has allowed some amazing things to happen. Like just-in-time fulfillment has brought cost of like the real cost of goods and services down. And there's been a lot of progress, innovations medically and other ways. And that's the good side. The bad side is the structures that are in place are abusable, as systems are, to line pockets and give power to people at the expense of other people. And this move towards just like aggressive moods towards ever bigger, like the bigger you get, the more efficient you are, is sort of the theory. I look at things now and I'm like, well, that's true for a while. Like, and then you get so big, you turn into this monster that can't do anything. Like I'm watching Amazon get less efficient, right? Because it's gotten so big. They're not as good at what they used to. There was a sweet spot about 2016, 2017. Well, now they're just too big. So anyway, I was hoping she would jump in, but she may be on a call. So if I see her in the background, she will give us an update, because a bunch of people went into the Capitol today and talked to the legislatures about food freedom. But at the same time, one of my friends, there she is getting targeted. And we're not going to talk about the specifics of that situation right now. Getting targeted at her raw milk dairy. So it seems to be they're going after the raw milk. And speaking of raw milk, we're going to bring Dawn in. Hey, Dawn, can I hear you?
Hey, yeah, can you hear me?
I can. Wow.
Nice.
I could hear you better if I turned the volume up, though. I turned it up. It was my studio speakers. I don't usually have my studio speakers very loud because I don't need to hear myself. I hear myself all the time.
I know that feeling. It's about the only voice I hear on the farm is mine.
Do you sing songs to your animals?
Oh, yes, all the time. I make songs with their names, give them disco music, you name it.
Awesome. Okay, so you went to the Maha thing at the state capitol today. Tell us what that was like.
I did, and it was very educational for me. I had not ever been into the state capitol. And so kind of seeing how the layout is, where all the representatives are, who's where. And I followed Samantha Baker around, and she was talking to people, and just kind of showed us how to start the conversations with, with our legislators about things, certain bills that are important to us with the MAHA movement. And it went really, really well. A lot of the representatives were happy to see us. So it was good.
So you didn't go in there and call them poopy heads then?
No, no. And I even had a really good conversation with Afton Bain, which I didn't realize that she is very much on board with pretty much all things MAHA. She's very pro clean food, clean water. We had a lot in common, and I was not expecting that. So for me, that was a really good lesson in going in with someone who you think is adversarial and starting out the conversation, with positive notes and finding things we had in common. And then the conversation just went really, really well after that. So that was a big lesson for me.
Yeah. How come you didn't think you would agree with her?
We are political opposites, but
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. But I'd only ever heard her stances on things that what the media talks about and stuff like that. So I didn't know she was a MAHA, that there's a lot of overlap. Not necessarily that she's MAHA, but there's a lot of things that she agrees with that the MAHA movement is pushing.
Yeah, I'm going to posit that people on the left are probably not going to want to associate with something of that name in general.
And that's it. There's no sense to me because
Marketing thing.
I mean, there should be nothing political about clean water and clean food and healthy families and healthy children. I mean, I don't understand how that ever became a political divide, but
Because everything can be a political divide. Okay, so how many people were there? How did that work?
I would say there's probably 50 people who showed up. I was hoping that there would be more, but 50 was still a good number. We were able to split up in like groups of 4 to 6 and go around and meet with the different ones, like especially on like the fluoride bill that's coming up. We wanted to really push that we are for getting rid of fluoride, and a lot more people were receptive, to listening to us than I thought. But so yeah, I'd say we had about 50. And what was really cool about it was a lot of the people who were there were first timers. They had not ever been into the Capitol before, had never met with a legislator, never seen the landscape. And then the seasoned ones are the ones that kind of led us around and showed us and started the conversations.
Mm-hmm.
It was awesome. I'll be back. I'm going to go back.
So, do you think it will make a difference?
The proof's always in the pudding. I don't know. I think them seeing us come into their office and talk about the things and tell our personal stories as to why we felt the way we felt humanizes some of the issues a little bit. And so maybe I think it would be better than them not ever hearing it at all, for sure.
Yeah. That's probably true. So do you think that there are elements that are trying to undermine this whole thing? Because I feel like there's been an uptick in the targeting of raw dairy specifically.
Yes, I do. And I don't know. I think it's literally just because it has become popular.
Okay.
And there's more talk about it and more people being accepting of it that previously probably wouldn't have been. And before, they were okay with just letting it be in the shadows and just kind of happening, sort of like moonshine. They knew it was there, but they didn't really have to deal with it. Well, now the movement is so much more towards real food that I think they want to have their hands in everything. And so I think that's why it's become more targeted, more demonized. They're trying to push a narrative. They're trying to push out the propaganda, and all that's becoming more in everybody's face just because it's a popular conversation at the moment.
Yeah, it is a popular conversation, and whew, it just seems beyond conception for me. Boggles the mind that we're fighting about right now is eating whole food grown on small farms. Should not be illegal. They want it to be. It's like, really? Like, out of all the things you're going to target, that's the thing you're going to target. But I guess there's just a lot of money in it.
Yeah.
Like, undoing what's been done. There's a lot of, I was just talking about how, like, this whole food system was built over the last 120 years or so. But like really accelerated after, I think it was World War II, and the structures that are in place have enabled powers to go away from the small folk and at the expense of the small folk. And that's, I think, part of what you're seeing is you're hitting a fundamental lever when we talk about food freedom.
Yeah, and it's something that, and I also think it's power and control that they crave. And I think it's because they had gained the power and control and they can't let go of it. Like they just can't leave people alone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's what we always talk about. Every time there's a little bit of power to be gained, they want more. They just want more and more and more and more fingers and everything. And I, you know, and I kind of get it. I've been reading The Germ and the Dairy Pail is the book that I'm reading right now. I don't know if you've read that one yet. But, you know, it talks about the same thing as the History of Raw Milk book does, where it talks about the way they were adulterating milk back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And we don't want that to happen again. And, you know, if they deregulated it, who knows, you know, what would actually happen, because not everybody's honest. So I kind of get that argument. But at the same time, overregulation or regulating it would push a lot of the small dairies out, because we can't keep up financially with all of the, you know, the requirements that would entail. So to me, keeping it like we have talked about, just in a small, you know, person to person agreement, where, you know, if they don't like my milk or they get sick from my milk, they won't get my milk anymore, and I have to look that person in the eyes. So, yeah, it's become more and more where you can't get things as locally as you should without fear of getting in trouble.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I think we should be talking about the counter marketing measures on that, you know, like, because we did that thing, that summit out in East Tennessee right before I went to New York. We can actually bring a good sense of humor into the marketing when we talk about it, rather than pain and suffering. And I actually think that works better. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to where we go next. Anything you want to say before we sign off?
I don't think so. Other than just, you know, if you don't know who your legislator is, and we try not to keep things super political in the homesteading world, because there's people on both sides that believe both ways, and they're really good people. But if there's something that's important to you, find out who your legislator and your senator are and talk to them. Build a relationship with them, get to know them, find out where they stand on certain things, because these laws that are being made at the state level, and certainly definitely local level, are what impacts us on a daily basis. So get involved. Nobody wants to. I hate politics. Everybody hates politics. But, you know, sometimes you have to if you want to make a change. So.
I mean, we talk a lot about working outside the system here, and
Yeah.
we do that. Like, and I think that's important. Like, there's a certain point where you just need to decide what your risk tolerance is and move forward or not move forward. But also there is with the growing pains of people moving into my state, and I know a lot of people are in different states, so it just depends if you have this environment. All of a sudden, the just leave me alone and it's been fine factor is starting to flip over, because there are real concerns that happen when your population doubles in 5 years. And not that ours has, but we've had a lot of influx. And the first person to the plate with a solution rather than a do nothing gets the solution done. So I'm like, we need to find more creative ways to say do nothing. You know? So anyway, well, Dawn, thanks for hopping on. I'm going to get into the rest of the show, and
Right. Well, thank you for having me.
hopefully your other conversation goes well.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Anyway, that wasn't planned, but I just thought y'all might be interested in what had happened today. And it was that a bunch of people went to the Capitol and started explaining how different laws that are on the docket this year would impact them as a small farmer or a homesteader. And, again, I'm not a big go get voted in and we're going to vote this problem out, but also at the state and local level, and really the local level, your vote might actually matter in certain situations. And being able to establish trust with leaders, or if you decide to run for office, God help you. But if you decide to run for office, to be that person, giving them a reasonable solution to something rather than the template, because what's happening is there's just template solutions coming in that often just further the power structure is not a terrible thing. And this is something I go back and forth on. Like, I stepped out of politics for years now, and about last June started getting involved again in my local community. And because I saw the wave of things coming in, and I know that at the local level we can do something, and at the federal level it seems like a huge waste to even think about it, because I mean that's a whole different beast. But anyway, okay, so we're going to go on with the normal show notes, and I'm going to talk about our featured event of today's show, which actually fits the theme of your community building goal is wrong. And that is that the Spencer Mag meetup is this coming Sunday. I believe it starts at 4. And if you want to go to that, contact Brad. If you don't already know about where it is and all of that, contact Brad for information at sequatchieschool@protonmail.com. And you will see that email in the show notes today. That's the only way to get to that particular meetup, because it's not just like a big open go to this address thing. I think he likes to talk to people who are coming to this sort of thing. I'll be speaking about lessons learned about community and preparedness from Ice-Mageddon. And also, I believe we're going to have a pre-meeting of people who are in different groups around Tennessee. So it's sort of like a federation inner circle check-in sort of meeting. So that's a Sunday. Also, we are going to have the meetup here that was supposed to happen in January on the 28th of February. I originally said the 21st. It's going to be the 28th because of how everything, I didn't want to do Brad's and that one the same time, and I just think it'll work better. That'll be 12 to 3, potluck style. I will have all the announcements out before I leave town on Wednesday, and then y'all can hopefully come here and check out what we've been doing in the holler. There's a possibility of a presentation there, but I'm not sure if it's happening or not. But definitely potluck. Come hang out, see what we're up to, catch up with each other. I haven't seen a lot of you guys since the December meetup, and that was a lot of people, but it was fun. Okay, let's thank 2 sponsors today. The first one, I'd actually like to bring your attention to something that you may not know is happening. I know we're in fall spring, and it's going to get cold again. However, right now, while you're feeling that garden motivation, is a really good time to get your bare root trees ordered. My friend Nick Ferguson has tree packages over at rareplantstore.com, and there's some really cool ones this year. Like, he does different sets of trees every year and bushes and different things that have different focuses. So you can get the fodder tree system or different things. He had a set of strawberries and other things, like a berry package last year that was pretty cool. And he sells out every year. So the way this works is you go to rareplantstore.com and you just buy one of his packages. You'll find that if you bought those plants individually at like Gurney or something, they're actually as a package less, and you're supporting a community member. And then he ships it to you when it's time for you to put them in the ground in your climate. So like if you're in Wisconsin, you're going to get them at a different time than if you're in Tennessee, for example. So check that out, rareplantstore.com. And the second thing I want to talk about is above phone. So we're talking about all of these top-down things and spying and blah, 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 blah. And I haven't talked about above phone much. Above phone makes a device that protects your privacy. And as we see more and more hacks happening, and I mean, as I start thinking about all the stuff I have on Google, I'm like, oh boy. So I started making moves to protect my own privacy. And because of that, I talked to Hakeem at Above Phone, and they make a device that protects your privacy as best it can. Like when you're on the cell network talking, you're on the cell network talking, right? But if you want to use apps on the phone that are less private, like Facebook or something, you can put it in a little box and it can't just reach out and get other data from your phone. That's not true of your Android. That's not true of your iPhone. So check out their devices. The cool thing about them, you just have to use a slightly different operating system, and they have when you buy a device, you get a free onboarding call. So you take your SIM card out of one phone, put it in another, and if you're like, you can have the call and they'll walk you through so you're set up. Like their goal is to get you actually using it. They also have a really cool PC that you can get. So check them out, abovephone.com. If you want to let them know I sent you, it's abovephone.com/? Above equals 104. That's my affiliate link. It's also in the show notes. And there is a coupon code. If you need the coupon code, let me know. You get $50 off a device. Okay. With that, it's time for our first segment. Even though we had the pre-segment, now we have the first segment, Tales from the Prepper Pantry. This is where we talk about storing what you use and using what you store. And today is Fat Tuesday. Fat Tuesday is, I actually started this. I took this from another friend who did this in Ashland, Oregon when I lived there. And Fat Tuesday is when you make crepes. So tonight is crepe night, and Jenny is out of town, and I told her, well, you're missing crepe night. She's like, no, because once a year we make crepes on Fat Tuesday, and we do savory crepes and sweet crepes, and it's all just part of the getting ready for the Lent season sort of celebration, celebration. It's kind of a weird thing to talk about Lent and celebrate. But anyway, that's a different topic. That's not the topic of today's show. But we do crepes. And one thing I really like about crepes is that it's a great way to clean out your fridge, because like all the little odds and ends you have left can go in a crepe. And 11 years ago, we were snowed in. And I believe 11 years ago was that storm where my choir actually had to cancel their concert. And one of the towns in Tennessee got so much ice that the poles snapped and they had to evacuate everybody out of this whole town until they could get it put back together. Like it was a whole mess. And so I had a picture. It's like, wow, I wasn't able to go to the store, but we still have crepe night. So that's happening. We are not snowed in, but I did share on Facebook the picture from when I was snowed in and did crepe night. We'll be getting that together. Like right after this show, I go make the batter, and then we start you pre-cook meats and things that you're going to put in crepes. You don't put raw meat in there. So I'm going to make bacon, and I've got turkey and ham and some other stuff, and mushrooms. We're going to saute with onions and spinach, and I'm going to make gravy, and it's going to be really good. So that's happening, and we're tapping the pantry for that. I'm also in the process of rebuilding our pantry system to fit our new reality, which is that we have two primary hubs here, two locations. Like my house has been the central hub for a long time, and we've moved a lot of activity to the base camp lodge, which has meant that I get a little more downtime, which is good for me. And also the things that are here need to be there, and there are things that are there that need to be here. And so this winter, what I did was, rather than double stock everything, is I just stopped reordering to see what I'd run out of and what we don't run out of, because also what we're using is a little bit different as we go into more reusable, washable stuff and that sort of thing. So I'm now at the point of rebuilding the pantry system, and it's been educational to see what we cruise through and what we just basically just have and don't use. And I'm not sure we need to keep some of it, but we'll get to that part of the purge soon, I think. For now, I did a big old pantry restock yesterday, and I have things here that need to go there. But that's just because I got home after 10 o'clock last night from choir. So, I was like, I am not going to go into the basement, a basement camp, and start putting the stuff away. So anyway, We're also scaling from 2 people eating to 5 people eating. And there's some growing pains with that just because, like, it's not 5 people eating all the time, but we've moved to a more formal Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday shared dinner schedule, which before it was just like all the meals are here, and occasionally I'd reach out to Nighthawk or whoever and say, "Hey, do you want to come over?" Maybe once a week. But we just decided it would be better to do the shared meals 3 days a week and see how it goes. And so planning for that is impacting how the pantry works, because our goal here is primarily food grown here, sourced from local networks, um, which means you need to be ahead of the curve on what you're working through quickly. And in that regard, I would like to find another cow this year. So I got a cow and a half, and I could use another cow, I'm pretty sure, at the rate. Plus, we're using all of this to feed people at the spring workshop, right? So the real issue is I sold too many lambs for meat, and I usually have 4 lambs for the year, and I had 1 lamb for the year because whoops. So there you go. I actually had 2. Have another one we're serving at the workshop, but that actually was part of my issue. And 4 lambs doesn't quite equal it does not equal a cow. Actually, it equals probably a half a cow by the time I'm done with that. And we go through a lot of meat because we eat sort of ketovore here. So that's just, it's interesting to see, because before, a half cow lasted a whole year, and then it was like Tactical really started eating a lot more red meat, and it went to a cow and a half, made it through the year with a few extra things, and now we're gonna cruise through all of the meat really fast. Maybe I should try to get 2 cows from the farmer next year, in addition, 2.5 cows. We'll see. If I source another cow, it'll be good. And if I don't, then I will make something else work. It's fine. But the way whole animals work is I have to be thinking now for next year. So if we're going to kind of keep this level of food being served, then we need to bump up what we're producing on the lamb side, and then also what we're sourcing on the cow side. We may eventually start raising cows here. That's been in discussion, and I think it will be smaller breeds, but I don't feel like we're ready to yet. It's not so much that we don't have the skills, it's just that I don't know how stable the pasture is that we're using right now, because the neighbor's letting us use their pasture, and like in return they don't have to bush hog, right? So that's cool. But if their priorities change, then we'd have to shift how we rotate the sheep, and I just don't know, how long that arrangement will last, basically. And we've been aggressively also trying to get property around us so that we have just more pasture ready to go, so that that's more stable. Like, I love that we can, like, we've made a huge improvement on the fertility of their land. And I love that we've been able to do that, but it's paid off for us too, in that we can more like rotate the sheep on a longer turnaround, so we just don't have the parasite pressure that other people do who have less pasture for the sheep they have. But also, I could understand if they're like, it's a pain in our neck to have cross fencing and all this stuff. So, like, I wouldn't blame them if that's what happened. It's just, we would definitely have to pivot. That's all I'm saying. So that whole reset's been sort of fun. Now is a good time to audit your canning supplies. I know I'm going to need more lids and some other things. I'm looking at that now because in the height of canning season, the store runs out. I also don't like any brand that I can get at, say, a local Walmart or Target. They aren't carrying the ones. See, I started having lid failures about 2.5, 3 years ago. And so I came up with using the 4 Jars brand, which I would love it. If anybody knows anybody at 4 Jars, they should actually think about working with me on affiliate or sponsorship sorts of things. So if you can put me in contact with somebody who will answer an email, that would be awesome. I was thinking of trying to see if we could do a bulk buy as a network, but it requires somebody there to talk to me for that to happen. So, Anyway, but audit your canning supplies. Do you have enough citric acid if you use that? Do you have enough jars? Do you have enough lids? How are your rings looking? Are they super rusty? Like, you can get new rings. You can get new rings. You don't have to use the same old ones for the rest of your life like your grandma used to. But also, you can use the old ones. It's just, I find if they get real rusty, they leave a rust line on the lid, and then that leads to corrosion, which would then inhibit the lid. So it's sort of the older rings that are, 80 years old don't rust in the same way, which tells me the metal composition has changed over the years. It has to be, because otherwise that wouldn't make sense. Other than that, we had German food day with the Holler neighbors on Sunday, and it was delicious. We had schnitzel, we had rotkohl, we had knödel, and there was a potato dish that Sue made that I can't remember what it was called, that was delicious, and it was really fun catching up with anybody. Next time we do German Day, I will do rouladen, but I need to get some specific cuts of beef for that to happen. Next up, we have a frugality tip from Margot. And she says this: I have a friend up north whose library has passes you can check out for discounted admission to museums. Check out what your local library has and see what they can offer you. That's actually very savvy. My mom's library, I believe, has national park passes you can check out. So another way to save money and have fun. Next up, we have Operation Independence. This is where we talk about building local ongoing revenue into our lives. The Grocery Club is closer than it's ever been to launching. I'm kind of excited. I've talked to people. I have a few more people I need to talk to, and we're just going to go for it, basically, and see what happens, see how many people are interested. But I'm hoping that will really serve to connect more our local small farmers with each other and with people who want their food, which then eliminates the need for them to travel all over the state trying to sell their food. That's a solution I'm sure everybody would like to see. Also, we came across some smaller barrels, like 30-gallon barrels with lids, which are great for storing feed. That they're better than the 55-gallon barrels because, if you fill a 55-gallon barrel, it gets really heavy. But they were used to store activated charcoal. So I believe what's going to happen with some of these barrels is we will resell them having cleaned them up. And they're a pretty awesome tool. They're just plastic barrels with a lid, and then they have the clamp down ring too, if you want to use that. We just use the tops because it has a lip, so it really seals pretty well. But I believe we're going to start offering a few of those for sale at the general store. And I'm hoping we can get another load of those barrels because they're awesome. And we got the byproduct of cleaning them out. We got a bunch of activated charcoal that was left behind, not a bunch, but some, which can be used, in your garden, for example. So not the end of the world that's what they had in there, but I don't think it was, air quotes, food grade. So there you go. Amy says, I tried that for a local conservatory and the library has a rotating pass and the next available date was 6 months away. Yeah, that can happen depending on, how many people use the library and what your library is. I think my mom's library also maybe has a satellite phone you can take. Like, it's got some really interesting resources. Okay, I know that we are 40 minutes into the show and I have not started with the main topic. That's because we added the extra segment at the beginning, but it's time for the main topic, right? You ready for it? You ready? I have a question for you in the comments. So, how do you know your community is successful? Like, how do you measure if your community is successful or not? Just write it in the comments and I'm just going to see what you have to say. Also, apparently the first barrel is in service. That's great. So we talk about community here all the time, and I get a lot of questions. How do I build community? There's nobody around me. I need to build community. How do I find a community? And I think, the other thing I hear is people saying, well, I started a community or I joined a community, but it burned out because terrible thing happened, right? So I think often communities fail because they have the wrong goal. And this is why I'm asking you, how do you know your community is successful? Is it that you're adding 5 members a year? Is it that you regularly meet together on a schedule and talk about specific things? Is it something else? I think a lot of people base their like, they'll come up to me and say, "I don't have a community because 5 of us get together and we've never found anybody else. It's just the 5 of us." And I'm like, "Well, you have a community of 5. Is it 5 quality people or is it, 5 people you don't like? Can you trust them to have your back? Do you do things together? Do you enjoy each other's company? Could you actually trust them or live with them for a week if you were closed in on a building together?" Right? Um, a lot of what I hear for measuring success is raw numbers. Our Facebook group is so successful because we have 10,000 homesteaders connected across Tennessee. Okay, that's great, but how many of those actually look at your group every day? A. B, how many of those are real people? And then C, how many of those have you met in person? Often people go number of people or how long the community, like the Homesteaders of Middle Tennessee group on Facebook is one of the best groups that we have, I think, in Tennessee. That community has been around for a long time. They were way more effective about 8 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago. And I think because they got so big, they had to put more rules in what you can post and how, which I understand why and support them in that. So this is not a critique of them, but I think as a result of that, you have a lot less of, "Hey, I just built this thing in my backyard. How do I blah blah blah? How do I trim the tree?" Or, "Look, I just made a keyhole garden," or any of those things that used to be more prevalent there. And that will happen with groups online as they mature. It's just what happens. So I think length of time a community's been is another way people measure success, how much money they're able to raise in a crisis or whatever. And I like to think about community goals totally differently. For me, when I look at a community from the outside, the first thing I'm asking is how many of these people have just surface relationships versus people with real trust, real inner circle trust. And what do I mean by that? Well, inner circle trust to me is somebody you're really going to go to bat for, right? And that means somebody who, as Brad would put it, can call you up at 10 o'clock at night and say, "Hey, I need you not to ask me any questions, but park a car with keys in it full of gas at the base of your driveway with $1,000 cash or $10,000 cash, um, and walk away." And you'll do it if you can. Like, assume you have all those tools. If you're like, "What? I don't have $10,000 cash." Well, okay, fair. But you know what I mean? That's the that's basically the the gauge. How many people like that do you have in your life, really? Out of curiosity. Can you think of it? Like, tell me in the comments how many people you have like that in your life. Is it 20 people? Is it 3 people? Is it 1 person? Is it no people? How many do you got? I can think of 5. 5 is my number. Some people have more than 5. I can think of like 5. And because of that, you would think, well, is that okay? Because you have such a big community, right? That's federating. And I thought, we think about it wrong. So if you have 5 people and Tactical has 5 people and they're not the same 5 people, and then one of Tactical's people has 5 people, you end up having a bigger foundation than if you have no people. So then the question becomes, how do you build that trust, right? Amy has 2 people. That's good. somebody listening to this is going, I have no people. I don't trust anybody. That's not good. If you have no people, you have work to do, right? And I would say the first place to do work is on you. Why are you afraid to trust people? Why are you afraid to set up situations where you can, because the people who end up in your inner circle, you've gone to bat with them or you've gone through something with them usually by the time they get to that point, right? It's not just, hey, I met you. Okay, you're in my inner circle. um, but when you look at a community and you see, it can feel like I'm talking about cliques and I'm not really, but there's this pot of people and that pot of people and that pot of people, and they all have inner circle scale relationships, even if they don't have them with me necessarily. And even if it's quote unquote my community, is if you can own a community, that's actually one problem people have when they go into a community, is thinking it's my community and I own it. That doesn't work too well if you want to build community. Are we surface or are we inner circle? And then of course there are tiers in there where I'm, like you might have 100 people whose phone number you have that you could text and they'll answer you. I have a number of people who I will help if I can, but there's a limited number of people that I'm going to put the car at the base of my driveway with the money in it, right? And just be like, enjoy, go for it. So, I think total participation is meaningless largely as a gauge, other than if you're trying to raise money, you're like, hey, we grew by 20%. Like, other than that, it's not that, it's the quality. And I think when you go into communities with the singular individual selfishness versus selfishness for community, that's what sets up situations for communities with large numbers but surface level relationships. Like if I start a homesteaders like professional association, most of those relationships will be surface probably. And I've actually thought about starting one because it becomes a point of leverage in the local politics. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. And in that game, numbers matter, because then it looks like you have a strong unified arm, and then that's how you propagate real change, right? But those are going to be surface relationships. They may even go beyond surface a little bit, but you don't tend to have, in sort of that business focused or politically focused arm, really tight relationships. You have people who have come together around a theme who will leave again. And I think part of why our community has grown steadily and kept quality is that we have a series of people who have really strong relationships around them, who then, when somebody vouches for somebody, is willing to jump in and go the distance. And I think that's part of why we were able to raise a decent amount of money to then put on the ground in North Carolina, and it was actually East Tennessee, after the Helene floods. Like, my generator went to somebody who I don't have that level of trust with them, but I have a decent level of trust, and it was shuttled by somebody who I do have that level of trust with. And I knew at the time it left that I may never see it again, but I was pretty sure it would come back. And they needed generators out there, right? So we raised a good amount of money and were able to get people immediate access to supplies, but then help create housing for a family that had been flooded out of their home, because the person we were working with had a second house on their property that needed some basic remodel in order to be livable. And he let that family stay there for a year, and we gave him money basically to fix it up enough that they could live there. And that may sound like a small thing, but the more communities who do the small things, that's actually a big thing. Because otherwise, what are you doing? You're waiting for a FEMA trailer, So I think it's those tight relationships that make it, when we're in those kind of a crisis situation, we're able to get boots on the ground. We're able to get resources moving, and people know, through trust, what's happening with with their contribution, because not everybody can be a boots on the ground. Sometimes they do, and the money doesn't hurt in a situation like that, because then we can just get the things we need. So I think that other form, like the surface level community, is what we've been taught is community through the way the system of our society is built up. If you think about the communities that you end up in, you have surface level relationship with many of your neighbors. Actually, I mean, I have tighter relationships with some of my neighbors, but in general, the community of DeKalb County, Tennessee, is surface level relationships. People know who I am, who interact with me online. Some people know me in person. They know me when I go to the farmer's market. They'd probably help if they could, but they're not going to leave a car at the bottom of their driveway with $10,000 in it if I call them in the middle of the night. That's not our level of support for each other. And then we also have the government school community. Those are, dictated by the age of your child and where you live. And it's sort of a top-down community. These are the things so real community has the goal of real relationships. And my goal is to help people develop those. And this is why you will hear me supporting other communities all the time, like the survival podcast community. I'm in that community. It's a great community if they relate to you, or Midwest preparedness, all of these people. The Spencer Mag that's meeting this coming weekend, right? The East Tennessee Homesteaders Alliance. You hear about these other networks that are in air quotes competition with me in theory. And I'm like, no, people who gel well with those also gel well with us. The Chattanooga Voluntarian Society, like all of these things, Upper Cumberland Mag, all of them. We have more popping up every day as people move here and can't find people who they, want to work with on freedom-oriented issues or homesteading or whatever it is, prepper stuff. And sometimes there's a community right there and they just don't find it and they start their own. And then people get mad because it's in competition with them. I'm like, well, but is it really? Like, why don't you just talk to each other and figure out who that's going to both and that sort of thing. So I think that one of the reasons I support other networks is the LFTN network is not my network. The LFTN network just happened because I started a podcast and we started talking to each other, right? But the LFTN network owns itself. The community owns itself. And, we've come to some standards on how we interact with each other. We've come to standards on what's acceptable in the community. We've organized around being doers, not takers. And some really tight relationships have come together. So when I look at a community, I want to know, does the community do what it says and says what it does? Or is there a lot of weird, nefarious stuff I got to guess about? If I'm going to federate with another community like the TSP community or the Spencer Mag, I want to know that they're up, they're not doing weird child trafficking or something awful. Does the community have a high number of quality, close relationships, percentage-wise, not total number of people? Or is it a bunch of people who just don't really care for each other? And you can see that by this next one. Does the community refrain from bad-mouthing other communities? When they start bad-mouthing other communities, it's a sign they're jealous of other communities and each other. Right? So if I go into a community and somebody's like, that person over there, blah, 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 the gossipy stuff, that's a sign that there's some health problems in the community. Now, I know some amount of that just happens because humans are humans. But if that's the standard, then that community it's going to fail. That's just the way that's going to be. So what makes us mighty, though, if we're like, but 5 people, Nicole, or 8 people, or 2 people? Amy has 2 people, right? I think what makes us mighty is that when you look at how we're organized with these sorts of things, it's not just 5 people. Like, the beauty of having really, really strong relationships, pods of 5, or I'm going to say 5 because 5's a number I could think of when now everybody's wondering if they're one of my 5, right? It's that inner circle approach, which if you're on the video, there's a visual aid right now. The inner circle, small but mighty network is bigger than 5 people. And it's because it's through the act of federating that we get the real power. And so if you look at the screen, there's, groups of 4 or 5 or more people that are their inner circle. But they're connected to each other because if you think about each of one of those circles, let's be honest, my inner circle of 5, they may not be each other's, right? So my 5 and Tactical's 5 are different. And so you could put me at the center of the one that's there, like at the upper with the blue and the red star. And those 5 people or 4 people are different. And Tacticals is the one down at the way bottom with 1 red star. And that's his 4 people. And I'm one of his 4 people. Right? So I'm like functionally in 2 of these pods right now, and they're connected through other small inner circles that people have. And the way this works is as follows. If you look at the red stars, let's say there's one person in the top, my group, who is inner circle with 2 people in the middle one person in the bottom, and 1 on the right. That's their actual inner circle. I have moved it to the upper left-hand corner. There's 5 stars there. What happens when the person with the blue star, so that top group has a person with a blue star, has an urgent need, is their inner circle does their best to help them immediately. Like car, $10,000, no questions. But let's say they don't have $10,000 or a car. The fact that one of those people in that original inner circle has connections in 3 other inner circles means they might have a car there. And because of the connections there, that person may be able to source the car. And that's how you see our network working, right? Like half the time when I'm able to move mountains and get something amazing done, I'm saying and I don't mean but you know what I mean? Like I say like, hey, we need to buy a piece of land for $300,000. And in order to do that, I need somebody to hold a note for $200,000. We have $100,000 down. We'd like the interest rate to be around 6%. I'm making this up. Well, who in my inner circle has $200,000? Maybe nobody. Maybe somebody in my inner circle has $100,000 and says, hey, put my name on the deed and find one other person with $100,000 and we can get this done. That would be an amazing thing. Things like that will happen in a week or 2. I will come online sometimes and say, hey, I need a connection at 4 Jars because they really should be supporting our canning and fermenting events, especially since we have Sandor Cats coming to the spring workshop, right? Because everybody could go home with a fermentation kit from them, for example. So the power is in the strong relationships, is in that when you make the strong relationships and when it's the standard to make some strong relationships, they work together to move mountains. Wherein if you're only dependent, if you look at that one with the blue star and the red star in the upper part of the screen, if that pod of strong relationships or inner circle had no connection to other inner circles, they wouldn't be able to do very much. All they could do is what they could do together. And that's not nothing. But the fact that that top inner circle, which is mine, is different than the bottom inner circle that is Tactical's, which is different than the one on the right-hand side, which could be Nighthawk's, which is different than the one in the middle, which is my mom's or whoever. The fact that they're all different is what makes us mighty. So when you're setting your goals for your community, find ways to avoid a situation where the standard is we trash talk people behind their back, and we trash talk other communities. When you hear somebody saying, man, these guys started a competing ham radio group and they're poopy heads, like, that's just cut it off. Just, you don't even have to be the leader, right? You just have to say, I don't see a reason we need to be undercutting somebody else who's also interested in ham radio. Like, let's go find out what they're about and see how we can help each other out. Think about the high number of quality relationships and organizing around doing. That's another one, like organizing around doing, rather than, and facilitate ways to do that. Get in person. You are not going to have the level of trust you need if you don't get into first person and suffer. I don't mean like create situations where you suffer, but when you get in person and you run a meetup together and the electricity gets shut off because the power company, with no warning at all, decided they were going to go into a 10-hour power turnover switch for your region, and you're supposed to sing karaoke, and you got a generator and a karaoke thing and a solar system going in, and can you turn that into a challenge, right? We did that here once. Like, the people involved in that were like, we got it done, man. We were still able to sing karaoke while the rest of the world around us had no power. Ha 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 ha. Those sorts of things. So I don't mean create those situations. They will come up. If you go on a rafting trip together, somebody's going to fall in the water and get all their clothes wet, and you're going to have to figure out how to get them warm, or whatever it is. And then really think about, when you set up a community to do something, are you fulfilling what people think the community is for? Are you clear about what the community is for, right? Like, our community is to connect doers so that we can support each other as we build the life we choose. And the life you choose is going to be different than the life I choose. But having those as the goals and the strong relationship is important. So I just say this: ask yourself, who's in my inner circle? And once that list is down, would I really leave the car at the base of the driveway with $10,000 in cash if they asked, without having to know why? Anyway, if you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at hollerroast.com. 2, consider becoming a member. Also, consider coming to the MAG meeting this Sunday with Brad, and the one we have here the following weekend on Saturday. With that, guys, go out, make it a great